Our job is to help your child, your family, truly experience the miracle that they are. And some things are holding them back, limiting them, not allowing them to do that. And that is our job. Our purpose is to be the people that help them truly get to experience the miracle that they are.
All right, chiropractors and chiropractic students, welcome to the Family Practice Podcast. You know, the one you've been waiting way too long for, because this podcast will actually stay focused on chiropractic. Not only what it takes to get world-class clinical results for kids and families in your community, but also what it takes to build a legendary, incredible family practice that takes care of your family way beyond your dreams. I'm Dr. Tony Ebel, and I'll be joined by Dr. Matt Hill, Dr. Ellie Wright, Jackie Jacobowitz, and incredible guests, chiros, associates, CAs, all these folks making massive impact around the world. We're going to cover everything: pediatric, perinatal, family practice. This is the podcast you've been waiting for, because moms and dads and families have always needed us. Now they're finally ready for us. I hope you're ready for the Family Practice Podcast. Let's go. All right, y'all. Welcome to the Family Practice Podcast. You know, this interview with Dr. Doug Swanson, I don't know how to describe it. I don't know how to properly introduce not just this incredible human, this incredible dad, this incredible friend of mine, this incredible pediatric and family chiropractor. It's going to be kind of hard to introduce this episode because the conversation just got into it. Well, what does it mean? It just got to a level of depth, but also practicality for building your family practice, what really matters to make an impact and grow your practice and what really doesn't. So the interview here with Doug, I'm going to get into his full bio right before we roll into the actual interview footage. I don't know if you can call it footage on a podcast. But first, as we want to do too, and we'll do each episode, I just want to give you a couple of minutes of jokingly internally, it's like the spill the tea with Dr. T, meaning like what's inside my head, my crazy raging bull, 72 thoughts, 87 visions for pediatric chiropractic and the future health of generations of kids. What's inside there in this current moment? We're going to give you just a couple of minutes of, we'll see. We'll have to wait for your feedback on these first dozen to 24 episodes, what you think about these first few minutes of purposeful ranting. But for this one, because Doug's interview is coming out way early in the release of the Family Practice Podcast, I just want to reaffirm to you the purpose of this podcast for you, and to let you know that it's for you secondarily. Who it's really for is the kids, the moms, the dads, the families, and the people in your community who don't even yet know that you exist. And second, what they do know of chiropractic is not this kind of chiropractic. It's not that principled, neurologically focused, subluxation-based, life-transforming family practice kind of chiropractic that we're going to talk all about, be all about, and teach to you here on this podcast. And so the statement of purpose is, it's not going to take me too many minutes because this podcast is very needed right now. Families have been struggling with their health for generations. It's not good. Chronic illness has exploded. But our kids, come on. Over half of kids right now in developed countries, and obviously we're coming from the great US of A here with our podcast and our practice, over half of kids having chronic illness. So that right there, if I left it right there, you would fully understand and feel why this podcast and why we all need to build our family practices much larger, much bigger, much faster than maybe we would have on our own and could do on our own if this podcast didn't come into existence. But second, I actually really, really, really do care about you and your family. Chiropractic, this profession, has transformed my life. First, as a patient, my ADHD is now wildly useful and wildly impactful instead of detrimental and a struggle bus like it was for the first 20 years of my life. So if it was just me and my experience with chiropractic, I'd be pretty damn stoked to bring this work to the world. But what it's done for my family, in terms of the life we live. Yeah. Financially, yes, with fulfillment. And I went in the wrong order. The F's are, for me, I'm motivated in the order of fulfillment and impact. My kids get to see me bust my butt on the regular doing something I love. There's not even words to describe it. I tell them all the time. I haven't said to my kids for decades, that or years. I guess I haven't been really at it for decades, but I haven't said to them for years, hey, I'm going to work. I've always said, hey, I'm going to serve kids. I'm going to take care of kids. I'm going to teach other chiropractors so they can teach more kids. They know that there's a purpose to my job. And so I watch most families not only exist without chiropractic care for their health and their vitality, I watch most dads and most parents exist without a purpose in their career. And that sucks because now two things double down to kids. One, if they're not getting chiropractic care as the foundation for their family's healthcare, those kids aren't going to grow up with that as their foundation with that. So they're going to have to find it later on in life, which sucks for those kids and their health. And second, I'm just motivated for you to have the time of your freaking life in practice, for you, your spouse, your family to experience such a level of success just through fulfillment and impact, and yes, finances and freedom as well. Those are my 3 F's. I am motivated by fulfillment. I know that this is my calling by God. I know that I am to step into this and build a legendary, never seen before family practice and teach thousands of you to do the same thing. That is how I become, that's my number one source of happiness and joy. After my family, obviously, I'm talking about the career things kind of in that order. So it's family, then it's fulfillment through my purpose in my career, family, faith, fulfillment. Then it becomes financial, and then it becomes freedom, okay? So when you look at the 3 that are a little bit more related to the job or the work that people do, I find it to really, really, really be where most coaches, most mentors, and most podcasts out there in chiropractic, if they're talking about the business side and the practice growth side at all, they're doing it in the absence of fulfillment and impact. They're only talking about financial. They're only talking about freedom and getting you more vacations. And so I just want you to know, I wanted to go on this preamble with Doug's episode here because you'll see him and I discuss how clear, how easy, and how much fun we're having because our ducks are lined up, our priorities are lined up, and it's about those kids and those families and impacting them and us experiencing that fulfillment before it's about our finances and our freedom. And you'll see even more so in this episode, which is why I chose to kind of introduce this one with a statement of purpose from the Family Practice Podcast, kind of ripping through these 5 F's, is to say, you'll see that his faith and his family drives him the most. So if you caught all that, I know we're not in a PowerPoint and we're not on a keynote where I could list them out, bullet point 1, bullet point 2, 3, 4, 5. But if you see the sequence of priority, you'll know this. No other podcast exists for this purpose. No other podcast, there's no one really out there talking about pediatric and family practice, not from a clinical part, not from a communication, not from a marketing, not from a practice building like we'll do here. But anybody who's talking about, and there's a lot of good ones, about principled chiropractic, nervous system focused chiropractic, subluxation based chiropractic, they just don't have the level of focus that we're going to on doing things for the right reasons and in the right order. And so I just know that you're going to fall in love with this podcast, this episode, and everyone after it, because that is what I want to represent to you with each and every episode, each and every interview. And everybody coming on here will literally have a perfect match with those core values and with that level of priority. So I pray that that makes sense. That's why we're launching the Family Practice Podcast, so that you can have all of those things and then some. We will talk about our faith. We will talk about our commitment to our family. We will talk about that fulfillment and impact drives us. And then we get copious amounts of financial success and freedom. I don't know too many people who have had more family time, more enjoyment, more financial success in practice than me. So don't feel like I put those 2 last F's last because we're not going to crush them. Just know that we're going to do so in the right order. And I just don't think I can say that enough. All right. So let me go through Dr. Doug's very important, very well-earned, impactful bullet points to his bio. He is a family chiropractor, just absolutely crushing it in practice in his hometown of Winfield, Kansas. Small Midwestern boy. That's why I love this dude. Lives on a farm. He's a lot more handy and a lot more badass than I. Do not ever get into it with Doug. He's just incredible. But Dr. Doug owns and operates Winfield Chiropractic, brings a truly powerful vision for health and wellness through the nervous system, through chiropractic to the community he grew up in. He's a chiro kid. His dad is an incredible, long-standing Winfield chiropractor. And so Doug is a chiro kid, and you can just hear that, see that. There's some cool stories on this podcast about that component of his life as well. And so after getting his bachelor's, he went to the prestigious, is it? I don't know. I'm not in charge of that world. Parker College of Chiropractic. And then returned to Cowley County and to Winfield because it truly is his calling. Now, when Doug really stepped into pediatrics and really stepped into his purpose of serving families, the inspiration for that is the birth of his first daughter. He is the dad of 4 beautiful baby girls. And then when he really was able to connect with me and hear about the perfect storm and Oliver's story and those things, the purpose for serving kids who have gone through the perfect storm is right inside Doug's heart and soul. And he's absolutely one of the leading docs in taking care of the toughest, most complex cases. And then through his practice, he created what's called the More Life Club, which supports families with health development plans. And really just as again, he talks about this in the podcast too, just agape and things that mean so much to him about the experience and the life that those kids and families and people that he serves through his practice with his doc team and his CA team will have. And he is absolutely as balanced. You know, people want to talk about family. They want to talk about freedom. They want to talk about still being fit and healthy. Well, Doug crushes all of those as well. Tons of quality time, tons of balance. That's his personal stress reliever. He's with his girls. He's out in the country. He's doing his thing. And I know you're going to love this episode with one of my best freaking friends on the planet and a man that I have such a respect and reverence and appreciation for. There's no words to describe it. Listen in, everybody. You're about to learn from the one and only incredible human, incredible family chiropractor, Dr. Doug Swanson. Well, Dr. Doug, they just heard, when this comes out, they'll have just heard your wonderful, illustrious bio, which you know me. I will read very professionally, and I won't have inserted any sarcastic stories about you in your introduction, okay? So you don't even get to hear it until it comes out on the podcast. But what was your introduction to chiropractic? You've got a cool story, and I don't think I know it. So, I mean, I know the big picture of it, but I don't know the detailed picture of it.
No, my introduction is I was basically born into it, right?
Yeah.
So my dad just retired this year after 44 years in practice. He retired in March. So, yeah, and that was my introduction. Just been around it my entire life.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of like a story of like, because we're focused
I was going to say, like, when did it stick though? Because, you know, I often wonder, I often, because, you know, my brain, I think of like every variable at the same time. I would worry. I could worry about this in a way with my kids. I'm like, because it's so second nature, because it's so just obviously what we do, we're a chiropractic family, do they have less love for it than I do, having found it? So was there a moment, was there a story, was there something that for you at whatever stage of your life, you were like, wow, chiropractic, and that's like a little catalyst?
Yeah. So interestingly, like I'll circle back. I'm gonna do a little weave.
Yeah. Hey, when I saw that, I was like, oh, that makes me feel better because I am a weaver. Yeah.
So like I can remember like trying to figure out, like I knew chiropractic was in my possibilities, but then I was into nutrition and into bodybuilding and into sports, and like all of us wanted to go into be like a sports chiropractor. And I can remember talking to my dad about it, and he's like, well, you know, as a chiropractor, you can do all of those things. You don't have to just peel off and be a nutritionist. You don't just have to be a trainer. And so, of course, I went down the road. But one of the stories that always, weaving back in, one of the stories that always stood out to me was when he told a story about adjusting a baby. And it's crazy. So, and our histories are way better now. We would have got this information, but here's how this story goes. So he adjusted his baby. It was colicky, crusty and fussy, and just not IBS, irritable baby syndrome.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So he gets to office next morning at like 6:45, and this mom's at the door with the baby. He's like, oh man.
The morning after
the next morning,
first adjustment was made.
Yeah, he's there. She's there. And he's like, oh man, must have been a rough night. So he opens the door and he's like, what's wrong? And she's like, fix this one too. And it was a twin. And that story, you just like, like
simple statement move ever.
Just like got great results for the first one. Her sibling was just
and that's
wreck as well.
There's a funny real life practical story. We joke all the time at PwC that the worst colicky babies are the worst new patients because of this real life funny joke. And hey, this is a good podcast with 2 chiropractors, 4 other chiropractors, so we're in a safe space here. You make that one just perfectly nervous system focused adjustment, and the kid gets like literally miraculously better overnight. And the parents are like, "We're done here," and you're like, "Not at all. Your kid is so neurologically jacked up. Yeah. We're too good." We'll kind of joke with the young docs. You're like, "Don't be," and the answer is yes, awesome. That kid's healing in a major way, but there's more work to do.
I know. Like, today we have gotten that they were a twin within 10 seconds, right? We would have asked that question. They're like about the birth history.
That sounds like the Fred Barge Moose Lodge story. Remember on Purpose when he was like, "Well, if you're down at the Moose Lodge and a baby's crying and the mother says," I remember that on one of those On Purpose CDs. Prior to podcasts, we used to listen to stuff like this on CDs.
Yeah. And I've done that with my dad.
Yeah, and I'm not. He's old enough, I'm sure, to have the tapes.
Did
you drive in the truck and have the tapes?
I did.
Cassette tapes? Yeah.
We would listen to the science and the politics and all the things.
Honestly, that is my inspiration for this podcast. We're not going to steal their amazing brilliance. We're going to weave in so much. But if those of you that are listening, when you have a chiropractor kid or student who listened to On Purpose and subscribe to that, you never forget it. It was literally pivotal.
Yeah, I guess I take that for granted because that was part of my.
And nobody knows about it anymore.
We would travel to my grandparents and he'd pop in that month's.
Yeah, because it came out every month.
Yeah.
So those that don't know, it was a podcast. It was tapes, then CDs, and now it is actually digital. Dr. Kent still does it, I think. And so there was one CD. So one episode would have been all about science. One would have been all about philosophy. Often an interview on that one. Yeah. And then another one, didn't they call it politics? Which would basically be like stuff going on in the profession, right? Yeah. Updated. So my intro to that podcast, for Today Speak On Purpose, I took that job as a CA, as a junior in college when I first started chiropractic with Dr. Elbert, who's just a wizard. And by the way, still rocking in practice, still teaching case management for Gonstead, for GMI. And I'd check in all the time. People are like, his class is the best. And it's case management, which isn't that kind of funny? Because that's my favorite thing to teach, right? Is the whole picture, not just one. Yeah. Anyways, we would go to these integrity management seminars. We can riff on that a little bit if you want for your beginning. And he would play these CDs. And I had no idea what chiropractic was. I was in undergrad, but we would drive from Ames, go Cyclones, to Kansas City, and 3-4 hours every 3 months, and I would get this just immersed into me. So okay, so let's go there. So you still love that. You are a wildly successful, impactful, practicing chiropractor. You are an incredible family man. You are one of my favorite best friends in the world. I love to talk to you about chiropractic. I love to talk about being a dad. I love to talk about being healthy and kingdom driven. So you do all those things you're doing very well. So at this point, many people would say to you, Dr. Doug, you should take it easy in practice. You should hit cruise control. You deserve it. Take more vacation. You're more committed. You're here doing this podcast. We're at the seminar, right? We're taking lunch break and doing this. So you're here doing a 5th refresher of the neurotonal seminar. Yeah. Why?
Kids. Well.
Yeah. Why?
The why is a big one. Yeah. So
I know that was I went from a lot to a little right there, didn't I? Yeah.
Well, the kids that we see today are just they need us. Oh my goodness! And so your other podcast is Experience Miracles podcast, and I love that name. I explain it to my people in my practice. I'm like, listen to this podcast, and here's why. I'm going to get a little weird here, but there's 300 million sperm. Okay. And you were the one that won that race. Yeah. So that's and literal chances of winning the lottery is 1 in 300 million. Yeah. And so I always tell
Gary
people,
Vee talks about that.
Right. So you are the miracle walking on this earth, and I don't know if your child is experiencing the miracle truly that they should. So our job is to help your child, your family truly experience the miracle that they are. And some things are holding them back, limiting them, not allowing them to do that. And that is our job. Our purpose is to be the people that help them truly get to experience the miracle that they are. They already won the life race.
Full experience.
Right? So let's help you.
Geez, that's actually, holy cow, is there contrast there. Holy cow, is there a lot there, buddy. Because you can be here, aka you can have made it. You are a child, you are a family. And actually, I get super pumped about taking care of parents.
Right.
Because to me, the parenting experience is awesome. Not easy. No. I did not say easy. No, don't hear me, that's not going to get post-edited. I did not say easy, but it is awesome. And I definitely think you need an awesomely functioning nervous system to have the perspective of it being awesome. Right. right?
Yeah.
And so that experience is part of that too. So you can either be here, okay, you're alive, but you're subluxated.
Yeah.
So your expression, your opportunity to experience that miracle is severely dimmed. It's severely subluxated means less than light. There's not full light on that. And, or we can crank it up, or we can maximize it. So do you feel like clinically, to be able to get a kiddo from where they're starting when they come in, you know, these perfect storm kids, these intensive kiddos, you're taking care of that. You're the one tough enough to take the care of the kid out of the hospital. And you did that. Yeah. And I know what's going on there. And it's amazing. She messages me all the time how much she loves it. So that would be the extreme example. That kid's failure to thrive. They gave me a chance, right?
No, that's interesting, because on that one, it's not like they lost something and they're trying to gain it back. This is one where we're setting up the foundation of the nervous system, seeing what we can get. Trying it how far we can get and see what the miracle will be.
Exactly what that kid is.
And so there's.
So is it harder? I guess is what I'm asking clinically. Now, and your brain might take that two ways. You're training to make it easier, but if you think of like what we got to do with this podcast, Brother Man, is think of in a very understanding, empathetic way where other chiropractors are with our standard chiropractic education, our standard. We signed up for all the same coaches and management groups, and that took us to where standard lives, where the path to standard, the path to like everybody else. And for you and I, we were like, and God brought us here. So clinically, is it more difficult to get results? And is that why you keep leaning in?
It is difficult to get results if you don't care plan appropriately.
Okay.
If you don't do the history like all the things we train on, right? So,
but what are those? Because this is not just for PX Tax.
So we obviously go really in depth into history, and we're going back, even to the conception, and just asking questions that most moms are like, well, I never had anybody ask me this. I don't even remember this. So like my associate and I the other day we had a set of scans, and we looked at the history and saw what was going on currently, and like there was something missing. It was just didn't add up. What was
Patient was already under care?
Starting. And you were first day, right? Yeah. So like we saw the scans, we saw the current goings on with the child, and we talked to the mom, and I was like, what I'm seeing in the scan is not it's not going,
because the depth of subluxation was worse.
Yeah. So like what we were seeing in that kid everyday life, what the scans showed and what the history did, they always line up somewhere. They weren't lining up. Well, come to find out, she had to wait 25 minutes to push the baby out, because the doctor wasn't in the room. And we forgot somebody didn't get that one piece. But that one piece made sense. And I was like, oh, there it is.
That's where it crashes.
And then the mom's like, there it is. And she's like, I forgot to say that. I'm like, whoa. I finally asked the right question.
Okay, so to make the job easier, so take on tough case, because a lot of people are afraid of taking care of kids. They're afraid of going into a family practice because of the A words. Autism, ADHD, anxiety. So what a lot of people tell me, and it's never a question in the room. So I have traveled the highways and byways of chiropractic, and spoke at all the seminars, and it's a blessing. It's been such a blessing. And I think it's why I'm a useful mentor, because I've had a lot of experiences myself and a lot of experiences helping guide chiropractors forward from wherever they start. And when you talk to them in the hallway, they tell you their subluxations. When you talk to them in the room, few do. Right. And so their subluxations are, well, what if it works? What if moms start to bring their kids in and I'm not confident enough, I'm not skilled enough? And then what about those kids with autism? What about those kids with ADHD? So they want a family practice. I'll tell it this way in this story, and then I have a question for you on it. Yeah. So, we're in all these different Facebook groups, and I think I've been in this group called Chiropractic Employment Opportunities probably for, I don't know, years and years. I never noticed it until God needed to have me pay attention to something last week. And what it was is about every other day, there's a new student graduating, and they'll post their picture, and they'll post they're promoting themselves to get a position, right? Yeah. And they will say, and here's what they all read. And I've probably seen thousands of them and never saw any of them. And then I saw 3 in a row that day. And it said, I am trained in soft tissue, ART, rehab, nutrition, spinal biomechanics, and all of this very non-pediatric, non-family stuff, because it's the current landscape of chiropractic education. And then the next paragraph, Doug, and the next paragraph goes, I'd really like a job in a family practice. And I'm like, which of these is not like the other, right? You have no training, and it's not their fault, by the way. That's not what I'm saying at all. Like, they don't know the path to it, because most chiropractors don't know. Yeah. And I'm like, it broke my heart again. I was so motivated to handle this and step into this space, because, like, you do want a family practice. Yeah. It's amazing. It's crazy fun. But not everybody is prepared for the reality that kids today are sicker than ever. So you need to be better than ever, but that is not an excuse to go back to Spinal Town and set up shop and start cracking backs and selling Shockwave.
Yeah.
So what have you done to make the difficult easy? So case history, in-depth, scanning technology, and care planning. Let's pull apart the hairs on something you have mastered, care planning. Why is that so important for clinical results?
Well, I can remember, Tony, back when we didn't have the thing we have now that makes my world so much easier.
Builder?
Oh, my goodness. So I can remember, like, when we were way back, 10 years ago, when we were building out plans, like, you'd be worried about under-planning for these kids. And now, like, with our thing that we put together, that you put together, the PX Care Plan Builder, we don't have to worry about under-planning. As long as we do a good history, we see the scans, we put that all into that spreadsheet, it really does do, for the most part, there's a little bit of doctor brain in there. I don't say it's all like cut and paste, but that makes it a world of difference. That one thing, that I think that would ease the doctor's mind to know that there's a formula.
Good point.
That we have, that as long as you put the adjustments on the person's nervous system, that they'll get there.
And that's what a lot of people don't. They don't know what they don't know. Actually, no different than our patients. We get all bent out of shape. Like, how'd you not know that? How'd you not know the nervous system was so important? How'd you not know that? The pediatrician wasn't telling the truth when they said they grow out of it. How were they supposed to know? How were we supposed to know that care planning was such a big deal for kids? Nobody taught it to us. I took 2 different pediatric certifications and not a single slide talked about care planning. Right. And I'm not being facetious. There was not a single slide that talked about A, communication, or B, care planning. I had all the techniques. I could have gone Logan on you. I could have gone SOT on you. I could have bam, bam, Right, but I was like, when, for how often, for how long, and so the magic is in there. Okay, so care planning. Now, let's say you chose the right care plan. When you're training your new doctor now, so then when it comes to adjusting, and my team, you showed up early to this week, and you adjusted my team, and then Slack blew up because they love your adjustments. They're like, that man can deliver the chiropractic goods. So you are absolutely a subluxation assassin. So what is the difference, do you feel like, between, an average chiropractor who's adjusting to make the spine move better, and then a nervous system chiropractor who's adjusting to make the nervous system in that child's life better? What are those pieces?
Obviously, intention's big. Like what your intention is. Some days require movement. Big movement. Some days require the gentlest of pressure, right? So what you're going in for, what your goals are. I've been doing this since I was 16. I didn't tell you that.
I understand. I figured I would have pegged you for 14 the first time you lit up a cervical.
My dad was like, I need adjusted.
You're a bit of a hard charger.
So by the time I got to chiropractic school, I knew all the old stuff and learning the new stuff. So I've been doing it a while. So it's hard to break that down into an explanation that you're like, oh, that. But
when you see, so I'll ask it this way. So within the different chiropractic technique landscape, why do you think it's so easy for somebody to kind of just choose one, get stuck on one, and stick to one?
Well, like anything, like your son Oliver, like he's getting into cross country. So once he's into it, you learn everything about it, right? And then you got to be really good at that one thing. So I chose Parker as an example as a school because it taught 9 techniques. Right. So I wanted to go to, I knew chiropractic. I wanted to go.
You knew that going in?
Right on. So I chose it over all the others because at that time they gave me more tools in the tool bag. And so I already kind of went in with the idea of wanting to know multiple different ways of getting into the nervous system. So from AK to activator to upper cervical to Gonstead to all the different diversified.
Well, that's interesting because, if I had my way and, we send a lot of kids to chiropractic school. We're approaching 100 over the course of their career so far, which is, I know that kind of in the chiropractic landscape, that's a big number. And I look at it, I'm like, well, if you math out how many kids they're taking care of, I suck at sitting care. I need to convert. That conversion number needs to go up, right? Because the podcast is low. I'm literally being serious. Like, I need to get better at sending more kids to chiropractic school. Where I would ideally send them, just knowing the details of current education, it would actually be New Zealand. Because New Zealand teaches inside scanning. So there's a competency to understand. Well, first they teach the principles of the nervous system.
Correct.
Second, clinical application, they use the inside scans. So you have to be proficient in running them, using them, interpreting them, care planning off of them. And then they have a multiple technique proficiency. You cannot graduate just thinking that one and done, right? Ain't going to be there. So I love this. We're on a chiropractic podcast, so we're splitting hairs. We're going to the details of it. But that's where miracles are made. Miracles are made via your certainty and your conviction, which then leads into the communication, which leads into the care plan, which leads into being a Jedi assassin of subluxation, primaries only.
Right.
And then you got to choose the right technique. Sometimes you got to go after it. Right? You got to bring the fire. And other times you got to, which is hard for you and I. Yeah.
Because you can.
Yeah, because you can. But sometimes you got to back off and go.
And like we were talking about earlier, sometimes you, in one visit, you might be going fire one place and so tonal the next place. And it's like you said, it's all tonal when you're getting into the right part of the
But it's light versus.
But having the right guy's name attached to the technique so you can apply the right thing at the right time.
What I love about this is we're two chiropractors talking about how chiropractic works. And once you step outside your own concerns with how's this going to look, how's this going to be, what's this have to do with me? Nothing, actually, is the answer. Chiropractic is not for you. Chiropractic is for your patients, right? Chiropractic is for your community. And I love that about you. You live that and you embody that. So here's a question from a clinical mentorship standpoint. So I'm going to ask you the same question twice. The best advice you've gotten from a mentor. First, let's apply it clinically, getting sick kids better. And second, we'll kind of come into practice growth and that. So clinically first, what do you feel like is the best advice?
I think there's always a reason why something's going on. And so dig deeper. Just as an example we gave earlier. So, you were talking about going through the history, like when the perfect storm became a thing, right? You were seeing the outside manifestations of the body not working correctly, and you'd go back to the history, and it always tracked, always. And so today it's just like you got to dig deeper. You got to ask better questions. You may even have to pause for like a day and come back and be like, ask it differently. And the mom be like, oh yeah, like what happened with us. Like the next day she had the answer. It popped into her mind.
Isn't it the same with looking at the scans and with adjusting analysis? Sometimes you'll get stuck on a scan interpretation, or sometimes you'll get stuck on you're adjusting the same thing and it's just not changing, and you just have to look deeper. Yeah. Do you find percentage wise? I know it's going to be a total ballpark. Once a day, twice a day? Do you feel like you kind of like have to pause, take that day, pull up the scans, look at the case history?
I wouldn't say it's daily per se. Yeah, maybe once a week or twice. Awesome. You get stuck and like, okay, let me think about this for a second. Or you bring in your associate and have two minds going.
The best. Or group practice or nine. Yeah, totally right. Great point. No, the advancement of being a pediatric chiropractor, the number one thing that allows me to advance each day at a rate I've never had before is being in a group practice. Right. Literally, because we all challenge each other, we all work together, and it's not even about challenging per se, but it is iron sharpens iron. That's what God taught us to do. So we do it. All right. So I'm going to come back to the business one first, but let's talk about this. Not every chiropractor, when a clinical case gets stuck, thinks to look deeper into the nervous system. What do they typically do?
They refer out, or they go to, what's the next thing that's not chiropractic?
Must be lack of magnesia.
Right.
Must be
supplement, detox, laser.
Must be parasites in a full moon.
Yeah. And I've been down, like
I was gonna say that's why I want to go
in my history. Like I came out of chiropractic school and I went into my dad's practice, and it was pain based integrity management. I don't know if you remember this little tangent. They did a marketing campaign where it was called Got Pain.
Oh, God.
Remember that?
I do.
Where it was like Got
I haven't until this point. I thought you were going to say How to Stay Young the First 100
Well, there was that too. But that was,
That's still ripping?
But no, I have no idea.
I don't either.
But Got Pain was a thing, and so I was like, this is not for me per se.
Didn't they try and sell their own version of Icy Hot with that?
But that was just the marketing. Like, it was a guy holding his back, and it was like, if you got pain, we're the people for you. Which is... that's what most people think about chiropractic.
I mean, hey, and when so you're paying a coach as much as you're paying, you're going to do it.
Yeah, that's right.
You guys did it, didn't you? You went full send on it.
Totally did.
Oh, yeah.
So I did that, and then it didn't satisfy me, that style of practice. So
probably worked though, didn't it?
It does.
Patients come in. I mean, in terms of
it works, but then
practice.
So then I was like, I went to Brimhall conferences. I don't know if you know AK.
I've heard of it.
And Dr. Milton Dowdy, and it's just like. It's crazy. It's arm testing. Things that's not crazy. It works.
Yeah.
And so I ended up being in a practice in Wichita for 6 months. I left my dad and I said, hey, I'm going to try this for 6 months. And we were seeing crazy cancer. And I was like, this ain't it either. Like went from
really
normal back pain Bob practice to the craziest of crazy.
Basically like a last resort practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the brand.
And that was the thing. And I was like, this is not either.
Yeah.
And so I had to find out what it was. And I finally realized, I just gotten married. We were going to have a baby. And I was like, I'd like to know about this. This is where I first met you in 2012.
What was the first part? What was the very first thing? Was it the online course?
No, I met you in San Diego.
Yeah, you came to the live.
I think that was your first live event. And I think where I found...
Downtown, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Andes.
Yeah, it was the Andes, yeah. Down in the basement.
And so I think where I got sold on pediatric chiropractic, other than wanting to know about it for my baby that was in my wife's tummy at the time, was when you threw this file about this thick on the stage floor and it echoed.
I did.
And I was like, ooh, that was the realest thing I've ever seen. Yeah, that was a moment where you're just like, oh, there's something here.
And it actually comes full circle to what we're jamming about right here, brother man, because I think I'm the first person kind of in this pediatric chiropractic landscape to say, hey, everybody, let's go deeper.
Yeah.
Let's not go sideways. Let's not be a jack of all trades. Let's not tell people that we're going to get their kid better by doing 17 different things at once, and only one of them is watered down, diluted chiropractic. You know, because I actually, well, here's how that came to be. I did all that. I took all the seminars, and I'm a good student just like you. Yeah. I attend, I learn, I do. Because I know, I've never known this until now. In retrospect, you learn these things like the only learning is doing. You know, the notes they're no good to you. The seminar's no good to you until you apply it, right? Yeah. And so I've always been obsessively obsessed. Okay, that's how much I love that word. But with learning, so I'm an immediate doer. There is no time delay, just like you. It's why we get along so well. Something new done tomorrow. Something new done today, probably, if I get back in time. You know, and so anyways, so I did that. So I did all this different stuff, biomedical, primitive reflexes, everything else, and my clinical results went to crap. They literally went from, I was trained by Dr. Albert, I was trained by Dr. Cody, and I was a nervous system focused chiropractor who knew, you know, how to find a primary, had rudimentary care planning, you know, better than others, but not where it needs to be. And it worked and got results. So it's just almost what I want to say on every single episode of this podcast is dive deeper, dig deeper. You literally said it right there. That was your best advice. Dig deeper. And that can go a lot of different directions, which we did, just take it a few different directions.
And, and like in this work, we have training. You're not guessing as what to ask. Like we have everything laid out where you could be guided into the like my new associate, he's 6 months into this work, and I'd stack him up with any of our guys who've been in it for years because of the training.
Dude, you want to hear something cool while we're on it? Yeah. Just share with everybody. I don't think I've told you this, but maybe you picked it up on a call or two, but it's real. So because the training opportunities I had before were more limited in terms of the clinical, right? So where we were when you met in San Diego with Epic and everything, Epic was amazing. I could get the science across. I could teach scan interpretation. We could teach communication and practice growth. And it was that was a heyday. We went from I think when I joined, there was only 70, 80, 90 clients, and it went to 350, 400. Our era, we'll call it, just blew up. Some of our best friends. God has blessed us. Those guys are amazing. David, Stamp, Coach, they changed our lives, right? And I cannot speak with them with enough reverence. And then there was more. It turns out that there was more that needed to be done clinically, right? Adjusting seminars and taking the clinical stuff to the next level, which has always been my obsession. I love practice growth. I can teach somebody how to market. I can teach somebody how to build a team. I have figured those things out. The only reason I figured those things out is because I figured out this thing first, right? Clinical results. So this became a necessity, not a first passion. So here's where I'm going with all this. You look into that landscape and we look at where the changes go with chiropractic, and it actually all really, really still starts there with that full obsession of digging deeper. Yeah. And so what we figured out is what's taking people off track is there's no path to do that. Anybody they trust to be a mentor is a sideways mentor. It's add this to your practice. Here's a side hustle. Or a mentor who would say, hey, Doug, you're doing great already. You have your beautiful girls, and you do. This would be easy for you to buy this hook, line, and sinker. You deserve more time off. You should take it easy. You shouldn't take on tough cases. You should just charge more and make more money, right? And then vacation with your kids, and and that's what chiropractors, coaches sell us. They do. They do. And why not you?
I was talking to you about starting up 2 more clinics.
Great point. That's a great answer to why not you.
Why not me? It's because people are traveling hours to get to me, and why not move myself and somebody that we can put in that office closer to them? Yeah. And with the training to get the results ultimately, right? And so there's too many kids out there going through the storm that.
And share this with them. You don't miss out on time being healthy. You're dialed in. You're healthy. You got
Yeah.
plenty of time to be healthy.
Yeah.
You get good sleep. You get your workouts. Your nutrition is dialed in. Your time with your girls is on point. Your time at church is on point. Your time shooting. Nobody can shoot a handgun like you, brother man. Right? So you ain't missing out on anything awesome in life to make life better for others, are you?
No.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. Because I think if we'd have just left it at that, if people said, oh, he's going to open 2 more clinics or you're going to do this, you think people just automatically think that I sacrifice. No. It's all balanced out, man. It's all dialed in. Okay, actually that's a cool segue because for life, for business, life growth, business growth, what's the best advice a mentor's ever given you to grow in that department?
So I was going to say something that you would say, but I'm gonna put it back to God. It's my best mentor, right? So, the best advice I can give to anybody is to die to yourself. Okay, so what I want, what my desires are, my will, my flesh, man, that'll get you down the wrong road real fast. So take a step back, and I'm actually going to use Tim Tebow as example. He talks about agape love, which is a version of love found in the Bible. And he says the definition of agape love is to choose the best interest of another person and act on their behalf. Well, I think that's what we do all day long.
It is.
And so when I give a care plan, it's to choose their best interest and act on their behalf. I'm not going to underplan it. I don't care if it's $5,000. It's what they need. We'll figure out a way, you know. Yeah. In my past, I would have been scared to say, oh, you need 72 visits. Like, you guys out there listening, like 72 visits. Like, yeah, it's a thing.
You would talk yourself into thinking, so for what's best for them is I better trim this down. Yeah. And it's not best for them.
No. And that's where the care plan builder is like, that's what it says. So now I got to present it.
Yeah. Agape love has been you since I've known you. And I know you study and you read scripture, you read the one thing you read more than neurology, right? So, and fitness is scripture. Yeah. Do you remember what stage of life or how did you discover, how did that concept, was it a Tim Tebow speech or?
No, it's just,
because it sticks to you. That's you. Like when I think of you, I think of that. I think of a guy.
It was Ed Milet podcast.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he was interviewing Tim and he just said that. And that was a time in my life where I was like, that's a good one.
Yeah. It is literally what God calls us to. And your things blow up after that.
Right.
Once you get yourself out of the way, your stress levels shrink. Right. And that doesn't mean you don't get exposed to
so maybe that's another part of it. I'm not getting into Tony Robbins kind of things, but like in the world, people will try to fight for outcomes and manipulate things to get what they want. And I think if you just submit and surrender and go to God's will, he'll guide you and lead you and direct you.
Would you use the word freedom? You find freedom there.
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah.
And I had no idea where we're going here, but this is fun. This is awesome. This is what God calls us to, is this conversation. So at our kids' school, Trinity Oaks Christian Academy, one of the speakers was incredible and at the banquet. And so the speaker that came up, I think I was just in a perfect spot to be like, all right, God, this is a big night for my family. My kids go to the school, it's a big night for that. And he just said the number one thing, and he's a high school teacher, and then he now teaches in college too. And he said, the number one thing I try and teach my students all the time through the word is this is where you find freedom. Because the world right now will tell you, oh, it's so restrictive. It's so restrictive to live in service of others. It's so restrictive to live by the covenants and it's so restrictive. You do you, Doug. You find the best version of you, Doug, right? And that's not freedom. That is literally the path to miserableness because all of a sudden, Doug or Tony or enter your name, whoever's listening, all of a sudden you become everything to you. And that you will literally, your happiness, your fulfillment, your joy will literally plummet like quickly the moment you make that mental decision. I agree?
Yeah. I was listening to something just yesterday and it talked about climbing the ladder to success. Only to find it was leaning against the wrong wall.
Then you got to go back down and go find another one. Yeah,
it's got to be it's got to be on the right foundation first before you put it on any wall. And that foundation has to be, so. Yeah. I remember CJ Mertz.
Yeah. His talks were, he would crush it.
He did one, what Billy D's thing was called Cow Jam. So he did one at Cow Jam, and it was, obviously he was a man of faith as well. Yeah. And he was talking about, like if the moon was any further away and he tied it back into innate and then intelligence. And then I was like, wow, I didn't know you can put all that together. And and we talked the other day about, Like the body has a natural drive to move back towards
You
health.
talked about that. Is credit to you, bro.
So-
that text changed my life chiropractically when you said, hey, isn't this the coolest thing about taking care of kids? No matter how jacked up it is, you use different language, better language, no matter how much is a mess, it is pre-programmed by God to move back to health.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so you got people out there that probably like, oh, okay, I believe that deeply.
Yeah, that's its
it's
design.
all the way down into the core of me. But then you bring in our science, and like you can't argue with it.
You can't. It completes the conversation of faith.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And these are the two things. Those are the things. Like my kids are like, through faith, you find freedom. You know, I don't know. I can run this through the lens of my kids now, right? You actually will find freedom. You will find your most joy, your most fulfillment, and your most freedom through service of others. Promise you that. It's the only path to it.
Yeah.
And then you actually can really, 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 really see God and see the intelligence by studying neurology. That's how I see it, point blank. You're like, wow. Okay, this is literally programmed this way. That wasn't some lightning hitting an amoeba's monkey, you know, and then, you know, and I love science too. So when you actually study the science of evolution, you're like, oh, that's like a pediatrician version of science. You know, that ain't gonna fly. That doesn't come together. Right. So let me go back to this though. All right, I had no idea we're going here, but I'm so glad we did. All right. So is Chris. Chris is you'd love this. So the truth is this. It is all of this that we just discussed is fantastic for our lives as dudes, as people.
Yeah.
It's the perfect path and to take as a family practice. As a family practitioner, when you are wired this way, you think this way, you believe this way, you operate this way, that's when your practice takes off because you're not chasing new patients. You're not chasing stats. They're actually chasing you. Right. They're coming from Wichita to you, right?
Yeah.
Do you see that for you personally, what's next in expanding that beyond you, beyond Dr. Jared? Like, what's next? Because it's now your practice.
Yeah, it is mine.
Yeah.
After being with my dad for
I was
years.
going to remind you. Because you probably default sometimes to like, oh, that's the way it always worked.
Yeah.
So your amazing chiropractor dad has retired and you've taken over the whole thing. So it's this path forward. So to close this down, so when you look at it, how important is it for you to now bring a whole team of doctors and CAs and maybe multiple locations around you of people who are A, wired with that purpose, and B, willing to go to that depth with chiropractic? Is that your focus and obsession right now?
Yeah. And, you know, thanks to you to bringing all the elements together. You know, like we have Club PXs all over the country. We've got this training. Like now there's opportunities, like for my vision, which is God is putting out there. You know, it is clouded for a while, and now it's like, wow, okay. There are things that's like I keep speaking about it because I know it's going to happen. So I don't have to worry about where am I going to find doctors. I don't see myself in these clinics.
I love it.
I see myself at my headquarters, you know, and going up there once a week or something, and being just like a guy on the wall.
And are you? I'll take it from where God has brought it to us, just to be very practical. And we do have it. You're seeing all of that available to you through PX, right?
Right.
Clinical training, plug your doctor in. CA training, plug your CA in. Marketing, plug
even the training before they give him a doctor. So they can go to the clubs in school. So like if you want to send some, you know what I mean? Like
that was the story. I weaved and I didn't come back. I got lost on a weave, bro. That's not the first time. Okay. All right. So here's what I didn't tell you. When I was like, I haven't told you this. And then I told you something else. I didn't even tell you this. Okay. And everybody listening. So yeah, we're not done yet. Stay tuned. So the students, when we'd have associates, it would take me 3 years. So, because they would come in from chiropractic school. So basically, here's what I now know the curriculum was this. Our Dr. Allie Wright, full credit to her for kind of teaching me what I was teaching her that I didn't even know we were doing. And the new pace and the new opportunity in front of us for all of our associates. So year one was unschooling them. It took like 12 months to friggin' peel out all the crap.
It took me like 5 years to unschool myself.
One was actually pretty good timing, right? And so if you're in PwC about 10 years ago as an associate, it's going to be the first year just to get you to, and I'm not trying to be a jerk or be facetious, it took about a year to get people to square zero, like to square one, just to get them like, okay, now we can move forward. So you had to clean up all the junk that chiropractic school puts into them and get it out of the way. Year two, we would then teach them how to adjust. So year 2, we would teach them the neurotonal framework and adjusting. And then from that, we would teach year 3 would be care planning and communication. We would start to have them see new patients. And then, and a little bit, it's not this clean on the year lines. And then we would teach them business marketing and everything else. Let's say it's going to be somebody that's going to go, many of my young docs have gone on and opened. They were never meant to stay there for life. It's not that
they were going to do their thing.
We threw parties for them. It was, it was the greatest ending because it's not ending. They're going to go open their practice. Everybody who leaves PwC who comes down this path, they're hiring associates within a year, right? Because they're already advanced through this. So here's where this comes home. Now we have Club PX. So like Allie and Jonah and Sydney and Joe and a bunch of people I'm going to interview on this podcast, they showed up in actually done at Life. If they're like in the pre-undergrad, they're coming to Club PX before the chiropractic school curriculum even starts. So now our associates and our new docs are graduating at year 3 level. On day 1. Right. See where that maps out?
I'm planning on that.
It is. So I've had to update. Yeah. I've had to like friggin' react and catch up and be like, oh, I got to give you more to do. I got to love it. We could grow faster. Right. Christina and I have had to like keep up. And that's the most God thing ever. When you are in alignment and on purpose, all of a sudden you're not like, oh, look at how great we have it. You're like, I got to get better here. Yeah. I got to get updated here. And it's been a blast.
You talked about like, I think what training we were talking about, but chiropractors had the biggest hearts.
Yeah.
They're like, if they'd allow themselves to be, they're the biggest kids on earth.
Truth.
Right.
And it's a great place to be.
And if I'm a big kid in practice. Same. I love messing with the kids, playing with. There's time to be serious. When you're doing a report, talking to the mom and dad to be serious.
And I find that kidding, we do, yeah.
And then there's just time to be you. And one of the things, if I was to give advice to anybody, not advice I've received from somebody, but advice to give to somebody, is to be intimate. There you go. And intimacy, in my as I define it, is to be proximally close to somebody and physically, emotionally, spiritually present.
Yes, sir.
Right. So, what do you call that when you're adjusting? It's intimacy. And intimacy, the other way to say, is intimacy. Yeah. So, like, you got to come from a place that is all about them in that moment. Yeah. And how do you do that?
That's a blast.
So, and you can be having lots of fun while you do it.
My favorite thing to do is I love this. I now have 2 podcasts and I make video content and I get to travel and teach. And the thing I fight for most on my schedule, and Jackie knows this, Christina knows this, my team, nobody will take my shifts away from me. You will literally have to pry those shifts out of my cold, shivering, dead. Like, because all of this is for that. And I get fully recharged by that connection. Like, that's my obsession, So, all right, dude. Well, I'm technically teaching a seminar today, and you are attending a seminar, so I feel like we might need to venture our way back to the seminar room. So what we need to do to close this one out is, if you have any desire whatsoever to enter the beautiful world of the Midwest and Kansas, baby. Do you know Cyclones are playing in Kansas City this weekend? They're going up against Kansas, yeah. All right, so maybe I should be following you to Kansas here when you head home. But Doug is growing at an incredible rate. Doug is an incredible world-class chiropractor and leader. So if I'm coming out of school, I want to be on your team. So reach out to Dr. Doug and get on over there in this massive mission and vision, blowing everything up. So Doug, the mic is yours to send these. Remember, we have students listening. We have family docs who are in a family practice, but now they're going to tap into this podcast and go, oh man, there's more. I could dig deeper. And then you got people who are got pain. They're still slinging spinal care. So where would you send them to send them forward?
Where would I send any of those to send forward?
Just what's your next step for them?
I think you should get into our membership here. Obviously PX is Pediatric experience is amazing. And so even if you don't, you get so much clinical scientific knowledge from that, even if you start family practice. But of course, I think as you get deeper into it, you realize how much of an impact you can make in people's lives, and the more life you can get in people, the better life they can have. And they are starving for life. Yeah, buddy. So. And it makes yours pretty dang awesome too, doesn't it? Yeah. Love it, brother. Hey, this was an absolute blast. You are, like life has been doing you being here this is our 17th seminar, but it's only one of the first podcasts. And as we talked about this whole last back half of this, God always knows how to direct traffic at the right time in the right place. So the fact that you're, one of the very first interviews on this, I think, from the Andes in 2012, probably one of the first top 3 founding members.
Yeah, for sure. Most fastest through the content. I think I do remember that blue line, baby, inside Kajabi.
Yeah.
And you did it again, didn't you? You went through everything, every single video once again. That's funny though. Downtown San Diego Gaslamp District might be the least Tony Ebel, Doug Swanson place that the two of us could ever be. Would you agree?
Agreed.
And we met there. Yeah.
Cornfield or Wheatfield or something.
Yeah, Wisconsin and trucks. Yeah, totally, absolutely. I love you, man. Thanks for doing this, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, jiving in. You got anything you need? You reach out to us. You reach out to Doug. God's got this. We got this. Those kids need us to get that and experience that miracle. So let's go find them. All right, brother. Hey, Dr. Tony here, and I wanted to say thank you for listening to the Family Practice Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe to the show so you don't miss a thing. Also, if you're looking for more content from us, you can absolutely subscribe to our newsletter, watch exclusive episodes on YouTube, and dive deep into the articles and blogs on our website. All of this is linked in today's show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode.